Respected students, chapter number 5 is about elasticity of demand. What is elasticity? Elasticity is basically explain the responsiveness of the quantity demand with respect to the changes in the price level or the changes in the income level. And so in economics, the term elasticity means proportionate changes in one variable with respect to the proportionate changes in another variable. And when we are applying this concept to measure the price elasticity of demand or to measure the income elasticity of demand, this concept, we usually apply elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand is basically explain how much changes in the quantity demand will occur because of the changes in the price level. And the income elasticity of demand is explained in the similar way how much changes in the quantity demand will occur due to the changes in the income level. So, elasticity of demand is basically a technical term and that is used by most of the economists to explain the degree of the responsiveness or the sensitivity of the quantity demand with respect to the changes in the price level or the changes in the income level. So, if we are interested to explain the sensitivity of the quantity demand with respect to the changes in the price level, we use the concept of the price elasticity of demand. And when we are interested to explain the responsiveness of the quantity demand with respect to the changes in the consumer income, we usually apply the concept of income elasticity of demand. So, how we can calculate the price elasticity of demand? Basically, we calculate the elasticity of demand by dividing the percentage changes in the quantity demand by the percentage changes in the price level. So in this formula, we can calculate the price elasticity of demand. So here, in the mathematical context, we can calculate the percentage changes in the quantity demand by taking the changes in the Q divided by the initial quantity demand. Then changes in the percentage changes in the quantity demand, we can calculate it as by using the delta Q. Delta Q is basically showing the changes in the quantity demand, and this changes in the quantity demand we can calculate it as by taking the difference between the initial quantity demand with the current quantity demand divided by the this Q is showing the initial quantity demand, that is quantity demand before the changes in the price level quantity demand, divided by the changes in P over the P, that is showing this delta P is showing the changes in the price level, and we can calculate it as by taking the difference between the current price level with the initial price level divided by the initial price level. So here, if the percentage changes in the quantity demand is 10% and the percentage changes in the price level is 20%, the result is equal to 0.5. And we usually the result of the price elasticity of demand with, we compare it with the one benchmark value. If the price elasticity of demand is less than 1, it means that the price elasticity of demand is inelastic. Here in our example, the price elasticity of demand is 0.5, which is less than 1. It means that the percentage changes in the quantity demand is less than the percentage changes in the price level. That is showing the response to the quantity demand is less as compared to the proportionate changes in the price level, which means that the quantity demand is less responsive due to the changes in the price level. It means that quantity demand is less sensitive to the changes in the price level in that case, which means that the price elasticity of demand is inelastic. So here, if we don't have the data in the percentage form and we have given the data in the units form, then we can calculate the price elasticity of demand by using that formula. And if, for example, we have the data in the units form such like that quantity demand is 20 units at a price of rupees 500. When there is a fall in price to rupees 400, it results a rise in demand to 30 units. Initial at the price of the 500, the quantity demand is 20 units. So when the prices are decreases from 500 to 400 rupees, the demand increases from 20 units to 30 units. So we have to calculate the price elasticity of demand. So usually the formula of the price elasticity of demand is percentage changes in quantity demand with respect to the changes in the percentage changes in the price level. So here we can calculate the percentage changes in the quantity demand by taking the changes in the Q divided by the Q. This changes in the Q is basically we can calculate it as we have simplified the formula here. We can write it this term in such like that way changes in Q divided by the changes in P multiplied by the P over Q. This changes in Q we can calculate it as by taking the difference between the initial quantity demand with the current quantity demand. This Q1 is showing the current quantity demand, and this Q naught is showing the initial quantity demand before the changes in the price level. Quantity demand basically it is showing, and similarly here the P1 is showing the current price level and P naught is showing the initial price level multiplied by the P naught is showing the initial price level divided by the Q naught is showing the initial quantity demand. So if we apply the all the data in this formula, we can calculate the price elasticity of demand. So our Q1, which is the current quantity demand, is 32 units, and the initial quantity demand is 20 units. We can write it here, and the current quantity demand, because price was falling in this example from 500 to 400 rupees, so the P1 is 400 and the P naught is 500, and the P naught multiply by the P naught, this is the initial price level which was 500 and the initial quantity is 20. So when we calculate it, our answer is equal to -3. So we, because according to the law of demand, there is always an inverse relationship exists between the price and the quantity demand. So always the result will be the negative. So we have to take an absolute of this -3 and we ignore this minus sign by taking an absolute, and then we will compare it with the benchmark value of 1. If the price elasticity of demand value is greater than 1, so here in our example the price elasticity of demand value is 3, which is greater than 1, we can say that the price elasticity of demand is elastic. Elastic means the quantity demand is showing more response as compared to the proportionate changes in the price level. So in our case, the price elasticity of demand is elastic. So here we can explain the possible combination of the changes in price and quantity demand with respect to their elasticity. So here we have different combination of the elasticity of demand that explain the different meanings with respect to the elasticity of demand. So here the first case is relative elastic demand, which is the more elastic case where the elasticity of demand is greater than one. That it shows if a small percentage changes in the price level occur that leads to a larger changes in quantity demand. This is the case of the more elastic demand. According to this diagram that is showing the more elastic demand case, here on the vertical axis the prices are given and the horizontal axis the quantity demand is given. So here there is a small changes in the price level from P naught to P prime, and the quantity demand is changes with respect to the changes in the price level from Q to Q prime. So this diagram is showing there is a small changes in the price level occur and price fall very and the very small changes in the price level occur, but the quantity demand is showing more response with respect to the changes in the price level. So that's why the elasticity of demand is elastic, because the quantity demand is showing more proportionate change in the price level, quantity demand with respect to the changes in the price level. So here the elasticity of demand is elastic. That's why the demand curve is flatter. If the demand curve is flatter, it means that the elasticity of demand of this curve is greater than one, that is showing the elastic demand, because it is showing more response of the quantity demand with respect to the changes in the price level. The other case is the relatively inelastic demand. Always the inelastic demand Inelastic demand, always elasticity is less than one, that is showing a larger changes in the price level, but that is showing small changes in the quantity demand. In that case, always the elasticity of demand is less than one, and the demand curve is always steeper. The steeper demand curve is always showing a larger changes in the price level, but its reaction on the quantity demand is showing smaller response, which means that the quantity demand is affected very smaller with respect to the changes in the price level. So it means that if a higher changes in the price level occur, but if the quantity demand showing small response, this means that the elasticity of demand is less elastic, or we can say that the inelastic demand curve. The another case is uh, unitary elastic demand curve, or we can say that the unit elastic demand. In that case, elasticity of demand is always equal to one, because that is showing the exactly uh, percentage changes in the quantity demand with the same percentage changes in the price levels. It means that if the percentage changes in the quantity demand occur is the same as the percentage changes in the price level, this means that the unit elastic demand and their elasticity is always one. So this is the normal demand curve, and that demand curve is usually applied on the basic necessity commodity case, where the consumer show the same response on the quantity demand exactly as the percentage changes in the price level. So in that case, the elasticity of demand is always unit elastic. So this is another case which is called the extreme case of the price elasticity of demand, which is called the perfect elastic demand. So in that case, elasticity of demand is always equal to the infinite. That is showing a smaller changes in the price level occur, but it leads to changes in the quantity demand by an infinite amount. In that case, this case is very rare occur in the real world, but mm, we consider it as the extreme case, because in that case the price elasticity of demand is always infinite. This is the case when the prices are slightly decreased, but consumer increase the quantity demand by an infinite amount. This would be the case if you are, for example, if you are a diabetic patient and you might exhibit perfectly inelastic demand over a range of prices if you had to buy insulin for treatment. This means you would still buy your daily dose even if the price double because you need it, and this item is essential for you. So if the prices are relatively high, you do not decrease the demand. Similarly, if you are selling potato in the vegetable market, and similarly in that case, this would be the case of the perfectly elastic demand. If the seller decrease the price level, it can buy, the consumer can buy the whole demand because in the overall market, because at that price level uh, it will be easy for the all the consumer in the market to, at a decreased price level, they can buy this affordable item. But if he increases the price level, the consumer cannot buy that item. So this is a very low price the consumer can buy. At this price level he can buy the demand, and he can buy that commodity, so their demand are increases by an infinite amount. This is another case of the perfectly inelastic demand. The quantity demand does not change regardless of the percentage changes in the price level. So in that case, if prices are increasing, but there is no changes in the quantity demand, this is the case basically for the diabetic patient. Now this is the extreme case. If you are a diabetic patient and if the prices are increases, you cannot decrease the demand of the insulin at any price level. You have a need of the insulin, so that's why at every price level you cannot change the demand. So in that case, the price elasticity of demand is equal to zero. That is showing no response of the quantity demand because of the changes in the price level. So this is the extreme cases that usually were very rare in the real world market, but we consider it as the extreme cases. Income elasticity of demand. The income elasticity is basically explain the responsiveness of the quantity demand because of the changes in the income level, and we can calculate it by dividing the percentage changes in the quantity demand by the percentage changes in the income. For example, if the demand for the commodity increases by the 20% when income increases by 10%, then the at that case, income elasticity of that commodity is said to be positive or relatively high. So, if the income elasticity of demand is positive, that usually would be the case of the normal goods or the luxurious good, because when the people income are increases, they usually increases the demand of the superior commodity or the luxury commodity. Similarly, if in the second point, if the demand for food were unchanged, when the income increases, the demand elasticity would be the zero. These are basically the compulsory commodities. And similarly, fall in the demand for the commodity when the income are rises, this result in a negative income elasticity of demand. This would be the case of the inferior goods, because when the people income are increases, they want to buy more quality product as compared to the inferior product. So how we can calculate the income elasticity of demand? We will apply the same formula that we have used in the previous slide for the calculation of the price elasticity of demand. So here we have an example, like find the income elasticity of demand for a consumer if his income rises from rupees 100 to 200 and the quantity demand of a good purchased from by him rises from 25 units to 30 units. So for the calculation of the income elasticity of demand, we will use the same formula that we have applied earlier. But here, instead of the prices, we will use the percentage changes in the income of the consumer in the denominator. So income elasticity of demand is equal to the percentage changes in the quantity demand divided by the percentage changes in the income of the consumer. So percentage changes in the income of the consumer is the changes in the quantity demand divided by the original quantity, and divide percentage changes in the income of the consumer is equal to the changes in the income of the consumer divided by the original income of the consumer. Original income of the consumer is basically the initial income of the consumer before the changes in the income level. So elasticity of demand formula is changes in the quantity demand is basically this delta sign is showing the change and Q is showing the quantity demand. So delta Q is showing the changes in the quantity demand, and we can calculate the changes in the quantity demand by taking the difference between the new quantity demand with the initial quantity demand. So the here in this example, the new quantity demand is after the changes in the income level is 30 units, and the before the changes in the quantity and before the changes in the income level, the quantity demand is 25 units. So when we take the difference of the initial quantity demand with the current quantity demand, the changes in the quantity is 5 units. Similarly, we have calculated the changes in the income that is equal to current income minus the initial income, and the current income is 200 and the initial income was 100. So the changes in the income occur rupees 500. So when we apply all these units in the formula, so changes in the quantity is 5 and the changes in the income is rupees 100 multiplied by initial quantity demand is uh, 25 units and the initial income was 100. So when we solve it, the elasticity of income result is equal to zero point 0.2, that is greater than 0. Income elasticity basically we usually compare it with the benchmark zero value. If the income elasticity of demand is positive greater than 0, it means that the income elasticity is basically a case of the normal goods, because when the income of the consumer increases, people usually buy the demand of the increase the demand of the normal goods or the superior goods. If the income elasticity of demand is less than 0 or negative, we can say that in this would be the case of the inferior goods. So there are different types of the income elasticity. And the positive income elasticity is explained the condition in which demand for a commodity rises with the rise in the consumer income and decline with the decline in the consumer income, and commodity decline because of the decline in the consumer income. So in that case, the income elasticity of demand is always positive, and this would be the case of the normal good. Zero income elasticity is basically explain the situation when there is no impact of rising household income on a commodity production or the consumption, because such goods are usually essential goods, and a higher income consumer and the low income consumer usually need salt in the same quantity, and there is no impact of their these commodity quantity demand with the changes in the income level. So in that case, these essential commodities case, the income elasticity is always equal to the 0. So the third case would be the income elasticity if it is negative. The increase in the income of the consumer lead to a less purchase of those goods. This is basically a case of the inferior goods. And the commodities with the positive income elasticity of demand are always uh, normal goods, but the commodity with the negative income elasticity is always a case of the inferior goods.